In recent times, we've seen massive and destructive bushfires in the Amazon, Spain, California and Greece. Down a bit. In recent times, we've seen massive and destructive bushfires in the Amazon, Spain, California and Greece. Last summer, here in Tasmania, we experienced 2 rounds of multiple dry lightning strikes that set fire to the Central Highlands, the West and the Huon Valley. It was our driest January on record, and almost 200,000 hectares burned. While Tasmania enjoys a mostly temperate climate, we need to remember that our state is located within one of the most bushfire-prone regions in the world. I believe we're getting that reminder much more often now than in the past. Our country's carbon emissions continue to increase each year, year after year. Our landscapes become much drier, our bushfire seasons extend and even overlap, and the impact of bushfire increases in human costs, in infrastructure damage, and in irreversible environmental devastation. Meanwhile, we don't appear to see any meaningful action or policies from our elected representatives. Tasmania has bushfires every summer. Some have been particularly challenging and destructive. In 1898, and kids, I wasn't born then, but I've read, that was the period of the Federation drought. Fire burned more than 2 million acres from Lake St Clair through to the Tasman Peninsula. In the summer of 1933-34, particularly hot and windy conditions led to major fires in Tasmania and through Victoria. 7 February 1967 became known as Black Tuesday, when extreme fire weather fanned existing burn-offs across the state. In just one afternoon, 450,000 acres burnt, so did livestock and infrastructure. 1,300 homes were destroyed, and sadly 64 Tasmanians lost their lives. I was a student at Harrow Primary on that day, and I recall it being dark by early afternoon. Our teachers walking us to the beach, the falling embers, stinging eyes, and choking on the smoke. I had a 39-year career at TFS, including 6 years as a chief officer. Let me tell you about what I observed as the fire seasons passed. It was during the mid-2000s that I noticed things were changing, getting more difficult. We noticed winters would... Can I get this a bit lower? Can you make this lower? It was during the mid-2000s that I noticed things were changing, getting more difficult. We noticed winters were getting drier. The fire seasons were starting earlier and extending longer. Forest fuels were dry and therefore more difficult to suppress. In 2006, we had severe to extreme fire weather over 2 days and subsequent bushfires on Mount Nelson and then much of the eastern shore. And that was October. I'd never seen such intense fire behaviour that early in the year. A couple of months later, we had big fires around St Helens. Several homes were lost, as well as the life of a young trainee firefighter. In February 2009, the world was shocked as the news reported 173 people died in the Black Saturday fires in Victoria. Fire weather conditions and the resultant fire behaviour was so intense that our fire and emergency service industry introduced a new top-end fire danger rating of catastrophic. This represented a forest fire danger index of greater than 100. Prior to that, the index topped out at extreme for an index of 75 to 100. 4 years later, our state recorded catastrophic ratings for much of the afternoon on January the 4th, 2013, Hobart's hottest day on record. Dunalley, Bicheno, Montchumana, the Gippsland River, Derwent Valley were all impacted with fast-moving and uncontrollable bushfires. In February, a large fire burnt near Collinsvale, just a few kilometres northwest of here. 2016 was an extraordinarily dry year across Tasmania. The west of the half of the state was at a record dry. And we almost run out of water storage for our electricity supplies. Fires burned through vast areas of the west and central highlands. Fragile and highly sensitive rainforest and alpine vegetation was also burned and is unlikely to ever recover. Skeptics will say, apart from wishing to put a sock down my throat, that we've experienced plenty of bad fires through history, and they're right. But the truly unstoppable, catastrophic fire events are becoming far more frequent. Earlier, such fires were almost a once-in-a-generation event. Now they're almost every year, with bushfires that are impossible to control. Perhaps not surprising now we know that 8 out of the 10 hottest summers on record have occurred since 2005. The strategy for fire services needed to change when fires are uncontrollable, getting people out of the way, protecting vulnerable people, critical infrastructure, and returning to put out the fire only once conditions allow. Long fire seasons and end-to-end major bushfires are stressing communities, and our firefighters are truly fatigued. Australia is globally the 15th largest emitter of greenhouse gases, and that's out of 180 countries. If we take a per capita approach, it's more like we're third. That's shameful, and if not corrected fast, scientists will tell us we could be on a trajectory for a 4-degree increase over the next century. I have joined with 23 former fire and emergency service leaders to form the Emergency Leaders for Climate Action. Google it and read our statement. We all have first-hand experience of escalating climate change impacts, and we are uniting to push for strong leadership and climate change action. Whether you've taken time off today from school, uni or work, congratulations and thank you for taking this important action. I urge you to keep it up until our governments take fast and decisive action